Hi, I'm Rick, and this is Talk Tonic here at Retail Now 2024. Today, I'm joined by Mike Monocello, who is the president of Managed Services Journal. Thanks for being here today, Mike.
Thanks for having me, Rick.
Want to start with a bit of a conversation around what's going on in our space from a managed services standpoint. I highlighted a little bit earlier that we've started to see, traditional VARs act more as MSPs, and we've seen some MSPs of the world where they've said, hey, I do everything else in a restaurant. Why am I not selling point of sale? So let's start there. Let's get some of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's an interesting situation. If you are a traditional retail VAR, there's a lot of opportunity to get into managed services. We've already seen some people from that space and that world start to enjoy recurring revenue, whether it's from traditional payment processing. And then we've seen some, the point of sale software as a service being a revenue stream. There's plenty more opportunity, which I hope we talk about here today, all these different services that they could be selling. You've also got, as you mentioned, these managed services providers who they don't usually come to a show like Retail Now. They are traditional IT people, but they are looking for opportunities all the time, and they find them in retail and restaurant. It's only a matter of time. If you're a retail or restaurant VAR, it's only a matter of time before these managed services providers start coming in to your customer locations, trying to win that business. So to me, for the people here at RSPA, I think it's a threat, the managed services providers, them coming in and winning that business eventually.
Absolutely. And these are people who are used to the recurring revenue model, so it's easy to jump into that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess they're at a disadvantage, and it is considerable. They might not understand the nuances of the business, which we know that's huge. And, to understand what a restaurateur is going through
Right.
is a lot different than just handling their network or something. And the payment processing, if they want to get involved in that, that's a whole other world of, understanding lingo and technicalities and things like that. So it's not going to be easy for a managed services provider to get into this space, but I do think that it's coming.
A topic that's been here around the RSPA for over a decade, probably getting closer to 2 decades, is transitioning your business from upfront capital to a monthly as a service recurring revenue model. And, I was part of that in the early days when when we actually got Dinerware to start selling monthly instead of cap cost licensing. And so, tell me what you think and what you've seen in this market for the people who have said, I can't really transition because I need that $25,000 up front as opposed to not making the money up front.
That's obviously a challenge. Cash flow is a huge issue for many resellers. I've interviewed many over the years, and they're just not in a cash position to be able to just draw a line and say, next month, we're going to start doing everything recurring revenue. There's a possibility of, slowly transitioning, taking maybe cherry picking deals. You could go so far as to say one a month, I'm going to try to sell it as a service. You and I have had conversations before about how that creates challenges alone in, different compensation models, which honestly, we don't have time for on this
Right.
episode to even talk about compensation models. And everyone has different opinions on that. But that's a consideration if you're looking to transition to managed services, is figuring out a different compensation model for your salespeople. Apart from just shifting over the point of sale system to an as a service model, there are other opportunities, I think, to generate recurring revenue with your customers. So yeah, maybe that system, you still have to sell on the quote unquote break fix model and get your $25,000 up front. But what about all the other services that you could be adding on, areas within the business of your customers that could be generating recurring revenue? And so and some of these things people might not have the expertise in, and it might take either hiring someone or getting a little education, but there's real opportunity here. And so I'm thinking of things like video surveillance as a service, digital signage as a service, getting into the networking and handling that network security, network Wi-Fi, like backup, failover type
Right.
systems. Any of those add-on services could be sold as a service and start generating recurring revenue. Maybe that's enough if you do enough of those things to start building up some recurring revenue and being able to be more comfortable to make a transition to more managed services.
Yeah, it sort of becomes the sort of transitioning to a little bit of a managed service provider where they didn't really think that way before.
It's worth it. I mean, if you're a reseller right now and you're thinking, I can't do this, I would challenge you and say, like, you can't afford not to do it really in the long term. I don't talk to managed services providers who regret being in that model.
Right.
I mean, they certainly have their own challenges with businesses like everyone does, but recurring revenue, it just takes care of so many problems. It levels out the ebbs and flows of cash flow, allows you to make strategic decisions with your business. So many resellers have trouble deciding when or if they can hire another salesperson.
Right.
How much money can they allocate to marketing, if at all? Because they're constantly just dealing with paying the bills. And are we going to get a sale this month that's going to be able to allow us to do that? Managed services removes a lot of that guesswork and allows them the flexibility and the power to make really good decisions for their business long term.
Not to mention the long-term value of the business, right? What's the continuity
Oh my
plan?
gosh.
What are we doing? What's the goal in 15 years down the road? A lot of resellers don't think that way, and it's kind of like a lifestyle business. And then it's time to retire, and what do we do?
You mentioned at the jump here, things have evolved a little bit in this space. Things have progressed where I think this community overall kind of is getting to understand the value of recurring revenue a little bit more. But when I was writing articles for a magazine, gosh, 10 years ago, we were having these conversations, and I was interviewing some older value-added resellers who had no real plan for getting out of their business. And many of them thought that their business, you think about it, you pour your life into a business and you build all these great relationships, but there's no recurring revenue value. So when they go to sell, or they think that I'm going to give this to my kids and it's going to be like a great gift to them, and they find out that the business unfortunately just doesn't hold as much value as they think because there's no recurring revenue. Now, you build recurring revenue and you have customers on contracts. You're really building a business that has value, that if you want to give it to your kids, then that's great. If you want to sell it, that's great too. There's good value in it.
I'll put you on the spot a little bit in terms
Okay.
of, I know you have two sides of your business. You have the Dev Pro Journal as well. Yesterday at the education sessions, there were a couple that were focused around the next 5 years in ISVs, the next 5 years in VARs. I know you have some visibility to kind of all of that and how
Sure.
it translates based on what you see through your lens of what you do. Maybe not 5 years, but maybe next 2 to 4 years in that space. What do you see? What do you see coming?
I think I was in some of those sessions, and I'll just echo some of the things that people were saying. And I feel like I'm kind of copping out here by saying it's so tough to guess where the industry is going with some of these technologies, things like AI. And, I mean, a lot of it is overhyped. A lot of it, we're not sure if it has real value. And so to echo what some of the panelists were saying yesterday, to me, if you want to be smart and agile as a business, you need to be staying on top of whatever is going to help your customer run their business better and more efficiently, whatever that technology is. That's never going away. I mean, that's not like any kind of secret sauce or like super secret trend or anything, but a lot of companies miss that. I think a lot of it would be easy. I mean, we're tech people, right? We love technology.
Right.
It's super easy to get excited about things, and like I've played around with all the LLMs and seen what AI can do, and isn't this neat? But ultimately, does it have value to the customer, and is it going to add value? Is it going to help their business improve? So that's the lens that I would look through to evaluate anything going forward, any technologies is how is this going to help my customers?
Yeah, the thing I saw in doing some consulting around AI was, it's the same thing as everything, machine learning, business intelligence, all of that. If it's not actionable, there's no way you can get to a value, right? It has to be actionable. When you look at what a retailer or a hospitality operator might have in, say, customer engagement or loyalty, all of that has to be not only actionable but measurable. We need to be able to say we did this campaign and here is what it yielded. Here was the lift on the
Yeah,
tickets. Here was the total revenue.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, absolutely. To go back to your question, I don't know that this is an opportunity, but it's a threat. And I think anything security related, any technology solution provider should be paying attention to security issues for their customers. The criminals are getting really sophisticated, as or more sophisticated than the people that are here selling technology. In many cases, you have, you know, state run governments who are funding a lot of these criminal activities. I'm talking about things like ransomware. You can, if you wanted to, you could go on the dark web and subscribe to ransomware as a service tools and start your own ransomware business. That's how like sophisticated this stuff is. People are leveraging AI and LLMs to do bad things, as well as all the cool stuff.
Right.
There's something called fraud GPT, which is being used to create really sophisticated phishing attacks for emails that are vastly superior to the old like Nigerian prince looking for money, or even in more recent time, the emails that we all get that they to us in the IT space, it's like it's close, but it's a little bit off, right?
Right.
The wording's a little fishy. I don't trust this. It's no longer like that. When you have these tools that are able to, you can literally use it and say, craft me a series of emails that are going to get me where I need to be in terms of phishing a username and password from someone. They're leveraging LinkedIn to see, oh, at this company, they just hired a new person in the accounting firm. I can use LinkedIn to see who their boss's boss is. I'm going to generate an email from that person to this new person and try to see what kind of information I can get.
I call those the sincerely Tyler Young emails and texts because everybody in our businesses have been getting these, and it seems like it might be real. And
Yeah.
then it says, sincerely Tyler Young. And I said, well, you messed up by putting that
Yeah.
sincerely in
Not
there. I
sincerely.
know
Yeah.
it's not,
Yeah.
nobody's going to end a text message that way.
Yeah.
But you're right, it's coming.
Yeah. So if you're selling technology, I think that that's an opportunity. Going back to recurring revenue and services, there are email like awareness tools that you can subscribe to and sell to your customers. And basically, what it does is it trains them constantly over the year. You can set it up with, there's hundreds of templates where it'll send off emails to the customers or to the employees rather, and see who clicks on them. And if they click, then it becomes a learning tool to say, hey, you shouldn't be clicking on these things. You shouldn't do these things. So yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, there's a ton of opportunity out there for recurring revenue. And the other point about that is it's not just revenue, especially just as a managed service provider. Once a point of sale VAR sort of takes that approach, you end up with a stickiness with your customers because somebody coming in off the street selling the latest and greatest iPad point of sale, they don't do voice over IP, they don't do networking, they don't touch ATMs, whatever. And so you have all these points dug in where they can come in with a point of sale and not be able to replace all of that.
Yeah, I should have mentioned that earlier. You're 100% correct. We talk about how having just the point of sale and the payment processing becomes like a pretty sticky relationship. Imagine adding like 10 more services on top of that. Everything from the networking to, printing and hardware as a service. If you lock all that stuff down into a bundle, you become very, very difficult to replace. And, that's amazing. That's the dream, right?
Yeah. And back in my time with my reseller business, I kind of just had this attitude that, and again, coming from the tech side, it probably made it a little easier. I wasn't a second generation cash register business. I was a technology company and a technology guy first. But I kind of always felt like, hey, if they're going to have cameras and they're going to have voice over IP and they're going to, they have to have networks. I need the network to be great for my point of sale system. So why not take it all over? If somebody else is going to sell that and make money on it, why shouldn't it be me?
Absolutely.
The
Yeah,
quick attitude to that.
Yeah, but it's the mental roadblock that I think a lot of solution providers have is like, that's outside of my core competency. I don't understand that. We don't have the people to understand it. And those are valid points, but boy, there's a lot of money being left on the table, whether it's things that they currently have, like you said, why shouldn't you already be doing that work? It's there. And then add in all the new latest and greatest technologies that someone could be selling, programmatic digital signage and, the list goes on and on with all these really cool things that people could be adding and making a recurring revenue off of.
Yeah, one of the first things I did was I was DVR camera systems early on, and once you realize you can, pipe in that transaction data in there for searching to be able to, even if it's a customer that says, hey, I've got a question about this, or I lost my receipt, or I have my receipt and here's my transaction number, to be able to plug that in and have the video come up right away. Yeah, there's so much value there.
That service can springboard into something else. If you're doing the video surveillance and you've got that analytics, why not tie that into digital signage and be driving like very targeted ads to people based on, I know this gets a little cloudy, but based on their age or the certain profile, I mean, there's all kinds of really cool things that you can be doing to tie these systems together, add value to what you're providing your customers, and give them a good product that's going to help them sell more.
I believe that will be the next part of the next 5 years is people adding these services and becoming more valuable to their customers. They have to. Yeah, it's the survival.
Yeah, I mean, we see all this really cool technology coming. Some of it is 10 years down the road, 5 years down the road. You can argue when it's coming, but it's coming, right? And so why shouldn't you be selling it? That's what we keep coming back to.
Yeah, I think one final point here before we wrap up. The thing that I learned a long time ago was that you have to be able to figure out, time is a finite resource, right? And you have to be able to make time to work on your business and not in your business. And I think a lot of times point of sale dealers are going in all different directions all the time, fighting fires. And if you can make sure you have the resources to take care of that and you can step back as an owner and work on your business, that's where you can start to really look at and bring these value resources into your business.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So maybe the challenge to the audience here who is interested in managed services, but not yet doing it would be simple steps, right? I mean, there are resources out there, shameless plug for Managed Services Journal, but there are resources out there that have good content that is just dedicated to educating people on getting smarter about managed services. But I would recommend pick one trade show and make the investment to go to it, a managed services trade show. There's one called IT Nation, which I have no affiliation with, but it's a really popular show. It's annually down in Orlando. It's every vendor's there. It's like the NRF of, everyone brings out their latest stuff. And it would be their education is usually very good. It would be a good investment to just send one or two people there, get an understanding of what the heck is going on in this managed services world,
Right.
and be able to see what you can take back and apply to your own business.
Great. Well, massively valuable content. I appreciate you coming on today, Mike.
Thanks. Appreciate you having me, Rick.
Thank you.